Repent. Never!
Hello, my name's Stuart, the Unrepentant Atheist. Thanks for tuning into my channel. And I just thought I'd make a quick video about Dr. Eben Alexander, who has written a book called Proof of Heaven, and he's written 2 follow-ups. He is appeared on many shows like Oprah Winfrey and traveled around the world. He's seen the Dalai Lama, has received quite a lot of attention for his story. So just to summarize, he took ill with an E. coli related infection, which I believe threatened his nervous system. He went into hospital. He was put into an induced coma by the doctors there. He was in this induced coma for 6 days. On the 7th day, he revived and he recovered. I think his immune system eventually defeated the infection, together with the pharmaceuticals that they were giving him. And 4 months after he came out of hospital, he began to recollect some kind of vision which he'd had while he was in a coma. And he interpreted this vision as having effectively been to heaven, and had a big supernatural experience. His take on it is that it's proof of the afterlife, proof of God. He wrote his book, and obviously he's had a lot of attention, and I just thought I would make this video just to really make a few comments on his case. So the problem with assessing evidence of this nature, in my opinion, is that it's not falsifiable. So whatever he claims happened to him, it was a personal experience. Nobody, by the nature of what happened to him, can examine his evidence except from his own testimony. With it being not falsifiable, it can't really be considered as evidence. However, it has been accepted by evidence by a lot of people who are interested in near-death experiences and any evidence at all which could confirm the existence of the afterlife. For me, obviously, it's better, probably marginally better, than the evidence which we see from 2,000 years ago, when the New Testament, when the Gospels were written, because at least in time scale, it's more recent, and the guy is still living. You can talk to him, you can ask him about his experience, and then decide whether you believe him or not. But just to illustrate why I have so much trouble with accepting Christian claims, is that we're talking about 2,000 years ago. The authors of the Gospels are anonymous. They claim to have spoken to eyewitnesses, but this can't really be confirmed. So we have a series of untestable claims. With Dr. Eben Alexander, it happened recently, and still, even though we can talk to him, his detailed testimony is there, and yet we can still dismiss it because it's unfalsifiable. We can't prove his claim wrong, that he actually, his soul went into heaven. We can't prove it wrong. So it's not really accessible or acceptable as any kind of evidence. But just to expand upon that, in his book he claimed that he was in a coma for 6 days, and that all the principal functions of his brain which could have produced this experience were shut down. Because even though his evidence, in my opinion, is worth nothing, and I've explained why, still we can try to reconstruct maybe what happened to explain it. Although no explanation is going to be 100% satisfactory, but still we can try and rationalize how, whether it's likely that, or whether there's any possibility that this could have been the case, and we could rule out that the brain could have produced these experiences. So he claimed that he went into a coma as a result of E. coli. Well, that's not quite correct, because he went into hospital and the doctors have said the reason they put him into a coma is not that the E. coli got him into a coma. They put him into a coma to protect him against himself. He was thrashing his arms around. He was delirious. He couldn't comply with any of the tests they wanted to perform on him. They wanted to scan his brain, etc. So they had to give him drugs and put him into a coma. In addition to that, every single day that he was in a coma, they tried to wean him off the drugs, and he came into consciousness. But because he was still delirious, they increased the dosage and put him back into the coma every single day. And Dr. Potter, who was caring for him at the time, is on record with all this. She's also on record contradicting his claim that before he initially went into a coma, he cried out, "God help me." She said she never heard him cry out this. Nobody else did, and he couldn't have done, because when you're being put into a coma, you have a tube shoved down your throat to provide air and everything else. And she's saying there's no way that he could have done that. So he's written this book called Proof of Heaven, and obviously his vision that he had, he describes himself that he was sitting on the wings of a butterfly, this beautiful green place that he went to, this, almost how you would want heaven to appear. And there was a girl sitting on the other wing of this butterfly, and they were flying around, and she was reassuring him, saying nice things to him, and made him feel good. Eventually, he came out of the coma, of course, and he came out of his vision or his dream. And it was 4 months before he started remembering it. That's another thing that you've got to think, well, he didn't say anything to anybody for 4 months. Why? That's strange. I mean, I would have thought that his close family, to his wife, for example, or he might have said, I had this really strange, this amazing kind of vision. But no, 4 months down the line, he starts to remember this. Delayed memory? I don't know. It seems a bit strange to me, but I suppose it's possible. But there are certain elements of his story which have been contradicted and which have been debunked. And I'm not going to go through those because the video would take far too long. Instead, what I've done is I've posted a link to Esquire magazine, who did a brilliant article on him and more or less completely debunked his whole story and undermined him as a witness of actually what happened. I mean, one reason people are listening to him is because he's a neurosurgeon. But if you find out that he's been discredited through malpractice suits, you might start really to question whether him being a neurosurgeon is really relevant. I would say that even if his professional abilities had not been discredited, that him being a neurosurgeon, for me personally, would make his evidence no more nor less credible. I say his evidence is not credible because it's not verifiable, it's not falsifiable, and it can't possibly count as evidence. It's just personal testimony, and for me, its value is precisely zero. Even if it was the case, as he claimed, that his brain could not have produced these visions that he had. This has also been debunked by neuroscientists who've stated that when you're put into an induced coma, some portions of your brain are closed down, but not all of them, and that brains are, under induced comas, capable of presenting dreams, etc. So that bit is nonsense. The other bit which is nonsense, and I'll just highlight this because a lot of people who believe in near-death experiences go straight to the sister. Oh, he saw his sister in the dream. He didn't even know he had a sister. Well, no, that's not how it happened. What happened was this. Dr. Eben Alexander was an adopted child, right? Okay, so he had this terrible medical situation, and when he came out of it all, he was sent a photograph and information that he had a real-life sister, a biological sister, who had died, and he saw her photograph. So he already knew that he had a sister before he made the connection. Yeah? So he saw her photograph and he said, oh, that's the girl I saw in the dream. Well, that's just a claim. How can we possibly test that? So he's got such a razor-sharp memory that he remembered exactly what the girl looked like in the dream, yet for 4 months he couldn't remember the dream at all. It all sounds a bit fishy to me. There are other inconsistencies in his stories and problems, but at the end of the day it's all irrelevant because it's just personal testimony. It can't possibly count as evidence. It's not falsifiable, and I dismiss it as any kind of claim for real phenomena happening with near-death experience, afterlife, God, anything like that. But I just thought I would come on and just make a few comments about it because some people in my videos have mentioned this particular case and they've said, oh, he didn't know he had a sister. Why don't you go out and research properly? Why do you just believe any rubbish that you read? When I read a fantastic claim, I don't then steep myself in videos which are apologetics for that particular claim. I want to see opposing points of view. So I go out, the first thing I do is I go and look on Skeptic's dictionary to see what they've got to say about it. And usually, more often than not, there is a good article assessing these claims. And indeed, with the Skeptic websites, Dr. Eben Alexander's claims are discussed and they are critiqued. So first I went there. And then, yes, I found out, oh, yes, he already knew he had a sister. He fabricated one or two things. He got things wrong with his condition. He wasn't in a coma. He was put into a coma, etc. He claimed that for the 6 days he was in the coma, it was raining. And on the 7th day, he saw a rainbow and the sky was beautiful and clear when he woke up. Well, there were no clouds in the sky on that particular day, on the Sunday, and he couldn't have seen a rainbow. And in fact, it didn't rain for 6 days. It rained for 3 days. It was clear for it was clear for 3 days. It started raining. It rained for 3 days, and then it cleared on Saturday evening. Sunday, he claimed to see a rainbow. He couldn't have seen the rainbow. Meteorologists have confirmed this. So he's obviously embellished his story. Which is sort of interesting in terms of building up some context for his claims. But so I'm just pointing out, when you see these things, and if you're a skeptic, you'll already do what I do and go around and check out skeptic sources for these fantastic claims to see if they really live up to the claim. Or if you're not a skeptic and you just will believe anything that takes your fancy and your imagination, and you already believe in near-death experiences and you're full of confirmation bias up to your eyeballs, then you'll just read apologetics sites. You'll keep away from the skeptic sites because you don't like your beliefs being challenged. So obviously the first thing, I went to Skeptic's websites. I found that Esquire had written an article. They'd done an investigative piece. They'd had a journalist go and visit him and speak to him. And they've got all their sources, and it's a brilliant article, more or less deconstructing his whole story. So I'm fairly well convinced. I can't assert that what he claims happened didn't happen, but based on what I've seen, the evidence that I've looked at, it looks to me like possibly he's either had some kind of dream and embellished it and made really unjustifiable claims about it. But I can't say for sure that it didn't happen. All I'm saying is there's no good evidence that it did happen in terms of there really being an afterlife and that he was there and that he was one with God. So anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you know about this case already? Maybe you can add something that I don't know about. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Bye.
Thank you for watching this production. I do this purely out of enthusiasm for the subject and will never ask for any contributions via Patreon or any other method. But if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, subscribing won't cost you a penny and will keep you up to date on my latest talks. Thank you.